Great. It's 4 p.m. Central European time. Hi, everyone. Glad you could make it to our session. My name is Matthias Gutzmann. I'm the founder of Digital Procurement World, and I'll be joined by three highly accomplished innovation experts today to talk about the role of suppliers in driving business innovation. We have Elvire Rigny-Lussier, a former Colgate and Unilever collaborator. We have Mark Pereira, CEO and founder of Visible, really one of the top experts and thinkers on the topic of supplier collaboration and innovation. And we have Alex Tamo, Global Procurement Director, Partnerships at Unilever, who was so kind to jump in for Dave Ingram, Unilever's Chief Procurement Officer, who unfortunately had to drop out due to personal reasons. But nevertheless, what a great panel. I also wanted to take this as an opportunity to, thank TNW for this amazing opportunity. We are the only procurement-led session at this event, and we're very blessed to be here. So we want to make this as interactive as possible. So you're welcome to submit any questions you may have as we go through the discussion, and we'll try our very best to respond to as many as possible as we have time. Again, the topic is really looking at the role of suppliers in driving business innovation. And, the COVID-19 pandemic has clearly stretched even the very best companies and supply chain. And as a matter of survival, has put tremendous pressure on the customer-supplier relationship. Maybe starting with you, Elvire. So it's now not really the time it's now really the time to take a more collaborative approach with our suppliers and drive innovation, or shouldn't we instead beat them up on pricing and cost to protect the cash flow of our companies and to protect continuity of our operations?
Thank you, Matthias. Yeah, that's a good point. I understand some companies they are in trouble and they have no other choice than to work on their cash and put pressure on suppliers. But I think this can be middle term, long term dangerous, because the supply ecosystem might then shrink. And I remember in the crisis of 2008, this is what happened. A lot of suppliers have disappeared, and then the remaining suppliers they remembered who of their customer was loyal and who was not loyal. And when they have been in a position to make their decisions, only the loyal customers have been served. So I think I understand the temptation, but I think it's important to remember we need the suppliers for innovation and supply.
Mm-hmm. Mark, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I think we're all in this together is one thing, and I think that's the part around COVID. But I think companies need to take that approach with their suppliers as well. But equally, COVID's also accelerated a lot of disruption in different industries. So companies need to, we're seeing digitization go through the roof, obviously, the likes of Zoom taking off, but that's also how companies are adopting that internally as well, and how they're interacting with their customers. Also, these large companies are understanding that when COVID kind of goes back to the new normal, we get to it, it doesn't mean their position in the market and their products and services are going to be relevant. They're getting disrupted already with a change of consumer needs. So it's the time to invest in innovation now. And I think this is what we're seeing is a big outreach there as well. And stats show that 70% of innovation comes externally. And I think McKinsey's research showed those companies with kind of mature, deep supplier collaboration can increase the speed of commercializing that innovation by 40%. So if you add those two numbers together, leaning in on the suppliers for innovation and the ability to commercialize it, it's kind of a magic combination there for organizations to do. And then the time is to do it now. Otherwise, there won't be a bounce back on a V curve. It's going to be more of an L curve for the company as the disruptors take over the market instead.
Great. Yes, a lot of those, new players that have been disrupting industries. Actually, they came out of crisis and out of times where things have been disrupting the entire industry. Alex, I mean, how is Unilever I guess evolved some of the supplier relationships and partnerships, I guess as a result of the crisis?
Yeah, no, look, I think clearly all our supplier and all our partner relationship have been evolving as a result of COVID in very different form. But I think the first thing that happened back in March is that we first were very keen to make sure we can ensure safety of our people, but also our supplier people. And I think that has been number one and continues to be number one priority. Then, yes, we have been totally taken by the need of innovation, the need of agility, the need of putting new product. Our business has been totally changed. We were not really doing hand sanitizer before these things start. And now we probably have an hand sanitizer product available in every country. And this has happened only because we managed to do it with our partners. We had extremely high collaboration because we need to learn that in weeks, and we were used to do it in months. So we also had to rethink our processes internally, the way we collaborate internally, how we manage innovation, all the gate process you normally go through, including also how you onboard many new supplier. And again, doing all of that, everybody being at home, working from home in our side, at our partner side. So when you think about normally a quality process and how you go and validate and onboard a supplier by doing audit, you can imagine this is not something we have been able to do. So it has increased the level of trust and collaboration you need to put in place. And I think we also realized that we needed to spend more time on digitalization at our side, but also in the way we work with our supplier to be more efficient on a virtual world. And to have processes that could also adapt to planning, for example, that change overnight. You normally plan for 6 weeks, now you have to plan for tomorrow. And I think the last thing as well, there's been a big learning and has been really a way we change our relationship or we evolve our partnership, is we realize we need to connect much more and much more often with our partners.
Yeah.
Connect to help us going through the crisis, and also recognize, because honestly, we have not been able to go through that without our supplier and our partners.
So interesting point around the digitalization, I guess. And I guess it's around the engagement as well, right? With the external world and the internal world, and I think bringing everyone closer together. Mark, do you have any thoughts around digitalization, I guess, as a means of improving the relationship that we have with our suppliers?
Well, I eat, sleep, and drink this stuff, and have a tech company that has kind of built the technology for this. But yeah, we're seeing it. I think you look at the solutions that companies use, it's Excel, PowerPoint, and an email floating around, and that's how they manage these complicated relationships and strategic ones. So, there needs to be some accountability that comes to organizations, but how do you allow that collaboration to actually happen rather than it be a stopgap from more of a governance side? So, we're seeing companies like Vodafone, adopted Visible, all their POCs that they're running with their suppliers all coming through one platform, having the portfolio mindset, but also to visualize what's going on in different stages. All these innovation projects allow the senior management team to make the right decisions and double down, but also just allow those communications to flow through in the right way. So, and I think you made the point, Matthias, these are cross-functional teams. And I think this is one of the challenges of organizations over the last few years. There's been lots of silos created. So it's breaking down the internal silos as well as the cross-functional, cross-company teams that need to work together as well. So digital definitely helps. Some other companies are trying to use Slack and other things like that. But, Alex mentioned the processes you're trying to optimize, the relationship management side, but also the cross-functional projects as well. But it's exciting, and it's worth saying, it's not just with big suppliers, it's with startups as well. How do you engage with the startup and the POC that they want to work your company with? You really have to respect them because that's their livelihood. They invest a huge amount in that. So how do you keep your teams accountable to help hopefully get that POC through and then scale it up in your organization as well?
Great.
If I may,
Please,
build on Mark. Yeah, thank you, Mark. I think the digitalization is going also to change the profile of the procurement teams, because today you have a lot of people in charge of transactions and maybe less people in charge of supplier relationship or strategy. So this is going also to help the people on the transactional side and free up some time. and the companies will need more people on the strategic side and the collaboration side. So I think, I hope procurement is going to be the place to be soon, thanks to the digitalization, freeing up people with transactional and boring activities. That's my message to the people who want to join procurement.
Yeah. Absolutely, I can only echo with Elvie on that. I think the last point I wanted to say, probably important, and I think it's also reflecting on Elvie said on the diverse company, the startup or the smaller company. One thing we also realize, and we are doing much more, it's about the whole risk assessment, risk management, trying to prevent and anticipate as much as we can the disruption that could happen. Because yes, it starts very linked to COVID and to resilience and really disruption because I cannot operate because I'm in lockdown. But now it's also about what will be the financial impact on some companies. So we're also very conscious that we need to be better and take more time to assess what will be the future of us, but also of the ecosystem around us. Because that's going to be a long-term disruption, absolutely.
Great. Yeah, I think around the digitalization is an interesting topic, and I think there's definitely, I guess, a need for increasing the speed of reacting to those, I guess, disruptions internally and externally, I guess, and really as a matter of that, invest into, I guess also rethink some of the current processes that are in place and maybe, rewire them and to make them more efficient, faster, and really also the ability, I guess, for procurement as a function to buy better, cheaper, and really faster ultimately, and collaborate, I guess, in new ways with the partners. But let's go back to the point before, which one is interesting, because I think we all agree that this is the importance of building trust with your suppliers, and the notion, I guess, of becoming a customer of choice, in the eyes of your suppliers, especially when there's change in strategies or during a crisis like COVID-19. Maybe Alex, you can talk about a little bit about how Unilever is changing its approach to partnerships, to drive initiatives like also sustainability, innovation, and deliver on the business agenda.
Yeah, no, it's great. And look, I'm in that role from February, and I think this was probably the worst we could believe, or the best time. So we are indeed rethinking the whole partnership agenda to make sure it's really embedded to the business strategy. And I think you said that, and I saw also a question. I think the magic is that the more we are embedded into business strategy, and the more procurement is orchestrating what the business needs, the more as procurement you become more than just a dollar bringer. So as Unilever, yes, you absolutely all know that Unilever has a clear vision about purpose-led future fit. And basically in procurement, we are driving the same procurement with purpose strategy, and partnership is at the core, because we just believe that everything we do and we need today and we need tomorrow will come with partners or in partnership. So our partnership strategy is really designed around, I think, three pillars, if you want to call it. There is a huge pillar around innovation, but it's about innovating responsibly and transparently. So yes, it's about innovation, but again, it has to be transparent and responsible, and I'm happy to give you more detail. It's about operating with agility and operating using data and analytics, because that's how we will continue to deliver value and not only the saving that procurement was famous for. And the last dimension is all about the collaboration. So it's about collaborating with transparency and trust. And you called it, Elvia called it, I call it as well. It's fundamental. So we are designing this partnership strategy around these three aspects because we have huge ambition and commitment we made, as you will all know, around environment, around social, and around, of course, serving our consumer. So it's the way we will build we are building the strategy moving forward.
Mark, procurement with purpose is a topic close to your heart, and one that you're currently pushing a lot.
Yeah, so I think the purpose side, I think Unilever is a great example of a company with purpose and how they work with their suppliers. One of the examples what they're doing in home care and their commitments around the step away from non-virgin plastics. To achieve that, they have to do a huge amount of work with their suppliers. We're basically rebuilding their kind of supply chain in terms to do that. So really exciting, but procurement with purpose is very relevant today. So this is not just environmental, this is social and economic impact as well. So, you know, bringing those jobs to some of the places you might source supplies from, and paying them fair living wage and all these things. So when, you know, there's billions of pounds going out there to suppliers, how do you do that with a positive side? I think Katharina at Danone, you know, talks about how their procurement teams are now making that decision between growth, sustainability, and productivity, where the savings part is. And you may have to pay a little bit more for the sustainability piece or for the growth and innovation, but ultimately you have to make that balance coming through as well. So procurement with purpose is key as well. I think that will dominate the procurement world, but you know, that's innovation for sustainability as well. So it's all linked together.
Great. There's a question coming through, and from Ryan Jones. It looks like he probably doesn't work in procurement, but you know, he's asking how much are procurement leaders truly getting involved in the innovation process. His experience is that procurement is more about the deal versus the innovation. I mean, we have probably the best examples of leaders here who are actually, you know, leaders driving value beyond savings. Evia?
Yeah, I would like to take this one. Yeah, Ryan, you're right. That happened, and that still happens. And this is why it was so important for Mark and Alex, for the three of us, to be here today to send a message. And I'm happy to be present today. That was in the past, and we are all pushing hard to change this approach. And there is a lot of room for procurement to improve, because exactly what Mark was saying, procurement with purpose. What Alexandra was saying about transparency and trust, there is plenty of room. Unfortunately, buyers have been pushed to focus on prices because this is immediate savings, but this is not long term. This is not sustainable, and this destroys value, and you can destroy some suppliers doing so, and you can destroy value in your own site. So I'm quite confident that thanks to this crisis also, companies will realize this is not possible anymore.
Yeah, and just on Ryan's question, hopefully it's Ryan Jones, the famous rugby player from Wales, who's answering the question. He also does good ice cream as well. So what we find is within organisation, they have to create a centre of excellence of how they optimise the way they work with their suppliers, but also the startups. So that could sit anywhere in the organization. It doesn't have to sit in procurement. But what you're seeing in the progressive procurement organizations, where they're automating some of the transactional sides, augmenting their kind of strategic sourcing and category management, that's freeing up more resources now to, as Alex says, link into the business strategy and partner with their supplier ecosystems. That doesn't mean they have to touch everything that goes through, but how do they bring those best practices in and digitize them with technology to allow the business to collaborate better, but also follow that side as well. So that's where we spend a lot of time around the operating model, but also the technology around it. But it's always linked into the CTO or the chief marketing officer or the commercial leads. It's their objectives, whether it is on the growth, innovation, sustainability agenda. So very much the facilitators of the process, but not the owners of innovation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and really, I think it has to be a business to business approach, right? Versus a buyer to supplier approach only. So you have to get the business behind it. It has to ultimately solve some unmet business objectives to make it work. So it's a big rock to move, but it's really the whole company has to be behind it.
Matthias, I think so. I think procurement, I mean, for people which are not in, I think for me it's a super connector. I mean, and I'm just out of the session from, I think, Rick, about this thing about net curiosity score, which I just love, because I think at the end this is the role of procurement. You will not own an innovation process, but you are playing a role of a super connector or a super translator, depending on what you want to put. And that's, I think, where's the key. That you help in one hand the external world to be able to integrate an internal world, how difficult or complex could be in the organization you work for, but you also translate your business need in a way that the external world can understand. So it's a translator or connector role.
Great. I don't know if this is a question someone wants to take here from Fred. Would be a good idea not to procure products, but instead the whole ecosystem of a product. So I guess the notion around of building ecosystems, or new ecosystems, right? Mark, is that something you want to comment on?
Yeah, well, I think there's two parts to that. There's the ecosystems that you're trying to create around if you look in the pharma space, you've got new ecosystems around precision medicines. So these are quite often taking blood from the patient and then re-injecting in. So it's a whole new value chain. So that's what we're seeing. So again, Unilever in the home care division, they have to create new value chains in the way that they're bringing these products to market. So it's not just one product or one surface, but they have to look at the overall product line that they're delivering. So it's optimizing these value chains. I think companies are taking this more holistic approach now of ecosystems and value chains, and not just managing them today, but how do they create the value chains and ecosystems for tomorrow? And this is driven by the consumer needs, but the personalization, but also the speed of things that are coming through as well. So good question. And yeah, they're definitely taking that, the forward-thinking companies as well.
Fantastic. Let's maybe talk a little bit about, the how. I think we all understand that building closer, relationships and, looking at the suppliers, not as suppliers necessarily, but also really as true partners. We understand that. Let's look at the how. And maybe Elvira, you're so experienced, I think, with your former company as a CPO at Afril. You even won an award with your company of driving supplier collaboration innovation programs. But maybe, tell us a little bit what your learnings are, or, your pragmatic recommendations are for the audience who want to, build, consider launching a partnership program with their suppliers.
Yeah, there are some key success factors, Matthias. So I will start with vision and support. A procurement team cannot. There's an echo, I think. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So there is a need for vision and support. So it's important. The CEO and the ExCom of the company, they buy the vision and the strategy, and they align with the approach, because procurement by themselves, they cannot do anything. The second point is the selection of the suppliers. You cannot deploy a collaboration program with thousands of suppliers, because it's time consuming. And remember my point. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I made a point.
No, it's good.
No, I made a point about the team structure, and it's important. To engage the collaboration with suppliers, you need strategic buyers. You need a mindset. You need an entrepreneur mindset. So this is you have to select the number of suppliers you will include in your program, and choosing is giving up. So sometimes it's not easy to just remove some suppliers from the program or not to select them.
Yeah.
You need a team, of course, team excellence, and the digital is really going to help on this side. Mm-hmm. You need to communicate your program. I would recommend to package it. So at Unilever, the name of the program was Partner to Win. At Avril, it has been win-win way. So I think it's nice to market a little bit the approach, so suppliers understand what you are trying to do, because they are not used to. And measurement is important when you launch a project, so a program. So how to measure the program, how to measure the impact of innovation. This is very difficult. It's like CSR. To measure TSR, it's difficult, but there is no other way. Today you need to deploy some CSR strategies. So I would ask the question the other way. What would happen if there is no partnership built with suppliers? How companies would manage the risk? Are the companies equipped to manage such a situation? Mm-hmm. I don't know. Maybe people attending this session might think about that. But again, what would happen if you don't launch a strategic program with your suppliers?
Absolutely.
There's a good question here. Thank you very much, Elvira. Very, very insightful. There's a question from Patricia. I like it, because she's asking, from your experience, what were the key drivers for suppliers to see procurement as an innovation connector? I guess around the notion. What's in it for them? What's in it for the suppliers? And if you drive those collaboration programs, it has to be a win-win, right, for both the buyers and the suppliers. Maybe Alex, is that something you have some experience with, and getting the suppliers onto the journey?
Look, absolutely. So first, I think it's important to exactly articulate as much as possible what is in the partnership for the other party. And I always use this analogy to wedding, but you really need to be two to get to marriage rather than forcing someone. So I think it's what is important, that if you enter into a partnership, you're kind of clear about what's your strategy, your business strategy, and why you want to partner with someone. But maybe sometimes we forgot to then ask, do you want to partner with us? And also reflecting on what Elvis said, because the big risk is very often someone has also the right not to partner with us because they would rather partner with someone else that could be our competition. So I think it's important to have this foundation. Now, I think also another key driver that procurement can really see, be seen as an innovator connector. I honestly think it's only on how you behave and how you treat your supplier as well. So, be clear on the objective, be clear on the KPI, be also clear that sometimes we don't know. And, we just need to adapt to a world that nobody can predict, but be very open and transparent about that. So, that's, I think it's fundamental. And today, yes, you have long-term agreement, long-term engagement, but put flexibility because nobody knows what will happen.
Yeah.
And I think it's about also, at least I see it in big company, you will get your supplier in if you demonstrate that as procurement, you do your best to connect them to the right person within the company. Because it's cross-functional. There are many people they will talk to, and you make them a big favor when you connect them to the right person. And the last point, very relevant for this session, is that we're also trying to make their life, as easy as possible in dealing with big corporates, because we know it could be sometimes complicated, especially if you're a startup or a small company. So that's also something else. Try to give them simplicity in how to work with us. It's not easy, but it has to be in the agenda.
So is it always the strategic supplier who's the best candidate for that? Is it always, the bigger the better, or I don't know how you categorize your suppliers there, but Mark, what's your experience? How can companies go about to choose the right supplier?
Yeah, so I think, look, traditionally the governance or the supplier relationship programs have been focused around the large suppliers. I think companies take a more modern approach now in terms of what they call segmentations of suppliers, and they're definitely focused on the earlier stage startups and innovation ones. So there's a nice 2x2 of amount to spend and then the alignment around the business needs. And when you do that, you will get the strategic suppliers or joint venture ones, but you also have the innovative and emerging ones. So you might find companies spending more time with smaller companies because they're closer to the business needs, whether it's around their growth, productivity, or sustainability, than the ones that they spend, close to $1 billion to, because they're core suppliers. It's more governance for them to keep the lights on, but you actually capture it. And different types of relationship models. So as Alex has mentioned, you have a two-stream approach of how you engage with startups, but also it's allowing the business to connect with them. I think this also comes into why procurement gets involved. We sell to large organizations, you have to understand the buying process. So if you sell directly into the business function, at some point you're going to come back to procurement, and then you're either going to find that you have to go through a procurement process. And actually procurement can really help you shape your business model and the commercials for the organization, so it's easier to buy as well. Yeah, it's a different model from where it was probably 10, 15, 20 years ago in terms of what these SRM programs are. And I think the C-level are now seeing the value. You're seeing the CEOs, the modern CEOs really reaching into how do we digitize, how do we work with startups? And you're having these chief digital officers on that as well. Vaz over at Novartis is a great example of that. He's capturing and working with these startups on how they reimagine medicine in their organization. So I think we're seeing it from ambitious leaders, and then it trickles down through the organization. But startups and smaller ones are super important. And I think this is where procurement are understanding that if they can create the processes, but also be the facilitators of this new innovation, then it's also how they become, they go to the next part of reimagining what procurement is as well.
Fantastic. So yeah, it's not only about, I guess, a program for the suppliers, existing suppliers, but also the future suppliers, right? AKA startups. I'm respectful of time. It's 4:30, maybe 5 more minutes. Maybe we can do a quick round, and you can share anything, your top takeaways or your top tips for the audience to run those programs. Anything you want to share before we conclude the session?
Maybe I can start.
Right.
Yes. So Alexandra mentioned the marriage. So I would like to paraphrase the French author Pierre Reverdy. He said, "There is no love; they are only proofs of love." I agree with that. And so I would paraphrase and I would say, with suppliers relationship, there is no trust; they are only proofs of trust.
Fantastic. Alex,
Love it. No, look, I think I think it's always been a good time for partnership. Also going back to the first question that Elvira took, but I honestly think this is probably, if it's not done, is time. It's time really to partner, and I think partnering with an ecosystem, which means anyone as much diverse and different a supplier could be, it's really time to create a way to work to all together, because I think, we talk a lot about COVID in the last month, but when I see that there is a huge economic challenge, social challenge, environmental challenge coming, and this will not be achieved by anyone on his own. So, the more we are, the more we can find solution. So it's super exciting.
Yeah. Good. Mark?
So my takeaways, and I have this conversation as well. So for any large company looking to put a supplier innovation program in, I think it firstly has to start with inspirational leadership and ambition. So the CEO down cares about this, but can also articulate what the business needs are and what innovation means to them. If the business can't articulate, it's very hard for suppliers to do it. The other thing is looking at this one single kind of system of steering. So this is how we do relationship management. Different models for different types of suppliers, but also how do we do the innovation process? Because then you can have the governance and the stage gates of your own organization. Otherwise, how do you know that your business is behaving well and being accountable to the suppliers on that side, but also making those decision gates? Talent first. You want to get the best talent into this kind of program, cross-functional in there as well, because it needs to come from R&D, it needs to come from commercial and marketing. But how do you bring them together and attract the best talent into the program? The other part is this portfolio mindset. So you have faith in the portfolio. It's not down to one individual project, but you have faith in that. And that's the drug that the business really cares about, that you have enough pipeline in there to solve their problems and their unmet needs and hypothesis as well. And the final part is then empowering the teams, the cross-functional, cross-company teams that Jeff Bezos of kind of, a pizza can feed the teams. How do you give them autonomy to actually make things happen? Because you also get this minutiae and over governance of teams, and then the innovation flow can't come through. So you need to create that environment and autonomy for those teams to come, and that's what the suppliers will come from. They want to be able to collaborate. They want to expand the potentials of their new products and services with your company as well, and expand out. But it's exciting space, and I think it's going to dominate the world of procurement for the next 10 years. But they'll still do the commercial stuff. So let's not think that procurement won't do it, but companies as a whole will really be tapping into their ecosystems. I think that's where they're going to get competitive advantage.
Fantastic. Yeah, huge opportunity, I think, for procurement, but overall for the business. But you're right. It's not only about, it's a mindset, right? That I guess an innovation mindset that companies have to create and, be willing really to bring the outside in. So I think we are, concluding now. I put my LinkedIn profile address here in the chat function. If any one of you wants to connect with Elvira, Alex, or Mark, please share your LinkedIn or email address, and they'll reach out to you. Other than that, I wanted to thank all of you. I wanted to thank again TNW and obviously also the audience for listening in. It was a pleasure. I hope we can share more about that. And I wish you a good rest of the day and of the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye bye.